I'm Billy, and this is the Unlock Your Child's Full Potential podcast, where we discuss how to give our children a head start in life and teach them some basic principles of success that will serve them well in adult life. This podcast is about the lessons that are often not taught in school, and it's up to us as parents to shine the light and coach our kiddos. Things like building their confidence, developing integrity, and a strong work ethic, shaping a worldview. It will also be about cultivating emotional intelligence skills, money mindset, personal growth habits, to name a few. I'm a mom of 3 young girls, and my mission is to raise them to be good humans, happy and fulfilled adults. Join me on my quest to learn more ways to parent with intent and raise thriving kids. I'm here to create a space where you feel supported and inspired to bring these lessons into your home and try them out. Let's dive in. Hello everyone. On this week's episode, we welcome Rain Elizabeth Stickney. Rain is a spiritual counselor and a meditation teacher for over 15 years. She believes in providing love and healing, life and light to everyone. Her unique offering is based in compassion for all that is. Listen in as Rain shares tips on how to introduce meditation to kids and how to encourage mindfulness at home. She also reveals the tools and practices she uses with her 9-year-old son. Hi, Rain. Welcome to Unlock Your Child's Full Potential podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you about our children's well-being and raising them to be happy and fulfilled adults.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Please tell us about yourself, your journey, and your mission in life.
So let's see. Myself, I am Rain Elizabeth Stickney, and I was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area of California. And a couple of years ago, I moved here to Vermont, where I live with my 9-year-old son and my life partner, Todd. I really believe in providing love and healing and the kind of life and light to everyone, including my family. The things that light me up, I tend to light other people up in the same way. And I really believe in the healing power that we all have in our own bodies and minds and hearts and spirits. And so I live from there, and I work from there, and I parent from there, and I partner from there. And when it gets tough, I rely on the source of love to fuel me to keep going.
I know you're a lifelong meditator. Were your parents the ones who introduced you to meditation? How old were you when you started?
Yeah, I am a lifelong meditator. My parents met at Naropa Institute in Boulder, Colorado in the summer of '74 when Chogyam Trungpa was there, and it was very much a Tibetan Buddhist school. Now it is still Tibetan Buddhists, but it's a university and there's more that's offered. So back in the 70s, it was more traditionally a place that people were gathering to learn about Buddhism. And that's where my parents met. That's where I was conceived. That's where the cells of my body started out. They were always meditating. And by the time I was born and even an infant, my earliest memories are of that universal life flow, timelessness beyond space consciousness.
That's incredible. Wow. You probably have taught your son to meditate too.
Yeah, he's funny. Sometimes he will say, I love meditating. And sometimes he'll say, Mommy, Daddy, you need to meditate. He'll instruct us. And sometimes he'll say, I don't know, I don't feel like meditating. So, he's just a kid about it, but he knows what it is. And that's what's important to me. He will make his own decisions, and I trust that. But we have a sacredness in our family that is really important to me. And Todd and my son both get to make their own choices about what's true for them.
Can you explain what are the benefits to kids?
Yeah. So at best, meditating is a very regulating experience. And I mean, regulating all the way through the physiology. So when I think back to when my son was an infant and he would have his 6 a.m. wake up, which is still true of him now. He naturally wakes up around 6 a.m. But when he was a baby, that was also my meditation time. So I would nurse him and then I'd hold him on my chest and he would be with me as I was meditating. And I believe there is a natural transmission that happens there. And if we even just look at the physiology, if my heart rate is regulating through my practice, that is informing his heart rate as well through attunement. And this is both physiological as well as psychological. So the more regulated I am, the more of a regulated space I can offer him in which to grow and develop. And then there are the other lessons of more overtly instructing him with taking deep breaths and even why that's important. And so he might get stressed or anxious or upset about something. And even before asking him to take a breath, I might take a breath. But he now at 9 knows the cue of take a few breaths. He knows it's not judgmental. He knows that it's not like you breathe, like I'm saying with a stern voice. It's more like, no, let's breathe together. And I model for him. He understands because he's been raised in this environment where things like being mindful are valued. He's seen the benefits in me. He has told me to take a deep breath sometimes when I have forgotten. So it comes full circle. That's something good for parents to keep in mind. What we tell our children, they often mimic.
They give us feedback all the time.
Indeed.
Yeah, I imagine your home being a so relaxed space, or it's not always like that.
Well, there are natural hiccups. And even just this morning, my partner and I were fighting and I was standing up for something that I believed was true. And he was feeling blamed. And I wasn't feeling blaming, but he was feeling blamed. And so, yes, we have a lot of peace in our home and we're a normal family where it get hard sometimes.
Yeah. It's funny that at some point we start looking for ways to teach kids meditation and mindfulness. Yet when they were very little, they were so in the moment. And we were trying to hurry them up all the time, like, go in the car, it's time to go.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, I think they lose it too, this ability to be in the moment and then try to learn it back again.
That reminds me of a friend that I had back in California who, when his son was an infant and even into the toddler years, my friend really believed that his baby was teaching, just through being a baby. And so he would enjoy gazing upon his child and just receiving that presence from his son by way of being open and receptive to his son being a delightful baby person, all the little baby things that babies do.
It's so good if you can catch yourself in the moment and just enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
How do we introduce kids to meditation? Do we start them with a guided meditation, or how do we go about it if we ourselves are not confident enough?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do have a friend here in Vermont who uses meditation with her children before bed. And she's a person who came to meditation later in her life. And so she does rely upon guided meditations that are created for children. And so she will play these meditations for them. They're recorded, and that's something that they do in their family to settle down at the end of the day. So guided meditations are wonderful if there's an interest and a connection that's happening that's positive.
So we do it with them, as a family, or just play to them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always recommend doing it together as a family because there is this energetic connection that we all have. And if we're assigning meditation to one or more people in the family, whatever age they are, but not doing it ourselves, there's a bit of a mismatch there. And in the practice of meditation, there can be a shared language. So different teachers, different styles of meditation will have phrases or words that are used and repeated. And that's important to engage the brain in a habitual way. So somebody might hear the word presence, like I like the word presence. And when that word presence is heard, the brain knows what that means and then can settle into, for me, presence is the non-dual space of being. And in a family, if everyone has that language, if everybody is involved in the practice in one way or another, then it becomes a shared experience, and this experience is strengthened.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you define spirituality? We're not a religious family, but I still believe in a higher power. I call it the universe. So I teach my children that good things happen to good people, and that whatever energy you put out, you get back. But we have no systematic way of teaching kids spirituality. Do you have any ideas on how to approach that?
Yes, I find there are opportunities to teach spirituality to children every day. And how old are your children, Billy?
They're 9, 7, and 4.
Oh, okay, great. It's nice to imagine them. So often I find nature to be the greatest teacher of all things, including spirituality, because there is a presence in the trees or flowers or animals that goes beyond thinking and it goes beyond comprehension. And even though there is a lot of science and things to understand about nature, there is also a felt sense, meaning the body feels a certain way outdoors that's at least a little bit different from how a body feels indoors. And many of my spiritual teaching moments with my child have naturally occurred in a stream flowing through our town, or in the redwood forest where we lived back in California, where there's just so much evidence of how time passes, yet life continues. And perhaps that would be one definition of spirituality that I would use, that there's a ever-present life, even in the birth and aging and dying and death process that we all go through. There is life that exists no matter what form is existing.
Mm-hmm.
I find nature to be a beautiful example of that, and something that children can see, they can witness, they can notice a flower that sprouts from the ground and grows and blooms and sheds its petals and then lays back down into the earth. And yet the flower is going to bloom again next year, or its sister or brother flower will bloom, that it's not the end, it's a continuation.
Wow, that's a wonderful metaphor that you can use. Yeah, gardening is very, very nice too, to connect to nature. That's a nice way to show some principles of life, like whatever you sow, you shall reap. It's one that I love. It's too bad that kids these days, or where I live, in a big city, mostly in apartments, going out, being in nature is more like a scheduled activity. It's not everyday life. Even walking barefoot is strange and ridiculed.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And I was just going to say that in California, we lived in a small apartment and it was on the top floor. So there was a balcony in front and a balcony in back. And our natural environment where we lived was not, there was nature all around, because like little plants grow in the cracks of the driveway or the sidewalk. And we did have trees around and there were birds, but it was a very urban area. We were also lucky that a little ways away, there was a stream and there was a redwood forest that we could get to easily. But right where we lived, we were not where we are now, which is in a forest. Where we live in a forest now. So that is very different. But what we did do in the apartment is we did have plants on our balconies. And for example, we grew potatoes and we had a calendula flower and a geranium, and the geranium was my son's. So there were some ways of connecting daily with the natural world by what we brought into our space.
Yeah, you're right. I kill all the plants in my home, so maybe I'm not going to be able to do it. But still, the other moms out there, that's a great advice.
Yeah, I understand. It's a skill, but also sometimes it's just finding the right plant that has the right personality to care for in a way that's easy.
For the kids, I love the nature summer camps. That's what I found to be a great way to compensate for the other time. And what I like is that there they can play with dirt, play like kids like to play, and breathe some fresh air.
Mm-hmm. That's
Do you
wonderful.
send your son to summer camp?
I do. He has been in summer camp over the years, and some years he gets a lot of camp, and some years he gets a little bit of camp. And they do tend to be nature camps, although we did an acting camp as well, and some variety. But his favorite camp of all is a nature camp, and it's one where the arts are incorporated into their days of nature. And the entire day is spent outdoors. And this wonderful area, it's called Tree Wild, and they have built a lot of structures on their land. So there are some covered areas to be outdoors in, but they also use song and story and various art practices for the children throughout the day, which I find so wonderful with a performance at the end.
It sounds wonderful.
But I also wanted to get back to your question. I appreciate you asking how to teach children meditation. I wanted to bring up the example of something really basic that probably many people have heard of, and that is using a talking stick. And we have created a very simple talking stick in our family, which is basically just a twig with some yarn, some red yarn wrapped around the end. But it's a sacred object because we treat it as sacred. And so when we have a family meeting, like a family meeting just because, or a family meeting because we need to work something out, we do really special acts of ritual. And any of us can be in charge of it. It could involve a candle or a special altar. But that talking stick is amazing because when we pass that talking stick around, we know that the person who is holding the stick is the one who is speaking, and the other people are listening. And listening is a form of meditation because when you take the people away, the practice of meditation is listening to oneself.
Mm-hmm.
And so we use the practice of listening not only to get along, but also because it's a skill that is infinite. The learning of listening is going to continue on and on and on and feed my son's ability to not only listen in his life, wherever his life takes him, but also to go within and hear those voices. And an example of how this has blossomed in him is one day we're playing outdoors. We're actually sledding down a sledding hill. And I saw him go over to a tree. And I thought that was nice. I love trees. And he went over by a tree by himself. And I didn't know what he did. But later in the day, when we were done sledding, he said, "Mommy, I went over to that tree." And I said, "Yes, I saw." And he said, "Do you know what I was doing?" And I said, "No, I don't actually know what you were doing." He said, "I was talking to the tree, and the tree talked back to me, and I could hear it." And I said, "Oh, that is so magical. I'm so glad you have the skill of listening to the trees." And he's done this with animals. And so his ability to listen is deep. And I want that for him. And that is one of the basic foundations of meditation.
You've done an amazing job.
It's continuing every day.
Mm-hmm. In my home, we have trouble listening. Everybody's trying to speak. So it's maybe a good idea to try that out.
You have a lot of people in your home.
Yeah. Any other rituals that you have in your family?
When my son was young, we would say goodnight to everything. We'd say goodnight to the world. We'd go to the window. We'd say goodnight to the stars. These very simple practices that I think many people do naturally can also be seen as spiritual, because what we're doing is we're honoring ourselves and we're honoring others and we're honoring the universe. We're honoring the whole world. So when there's a moment of good night to the computer, good night to the book, good night to the plants, good night to the stars, good night to our family that's far away, good night to the moon, good night to the cosmos, it gives a person a feeling of, I am here and I am surrounded by so much beauty. It's like a feeling of family beyond the people family. And for me, spirituality has so much to do with, we are all in this together. We are all here alive in this world, breathing the same air, and we all get to give and receive respect. And if we choose, we get to be a force of love. That's a very strong spiritual belief that I offer to my son and my family and anyone who's interested. Just the spirit of love.
Mm-hmm. How does your son interact with people outside the family? Does he do it in the same way?
Well, he does it in his way.
Yeah, I mean, the way he's raised.
Yeah, but he's very thoughtful and conscientious, and he's a very good friend. So yes, he either innately or through what he's learned from me, or probably a combination of both, he is a compassionate, loving soul. And people know this about him. People really like this about him. And he likes it about himself in terms of, if there is an opportunity for him to give love, he does, because he wants to. And an example of this is just the other day, he really loves Lego. He's crazy about Lego, and he made 4 Lego people and he showed them to me and he said, do you know who these people are? And I said, like, I made some guesses, and he said, no. And he said, this is my friend. This is my friend's brother. And these are my friend's parents. And I thought that was so nice. But what happened was he made an entire project for them just because he wanted to give them something, and he has a wealth of Lego. And so he's giving away something that he has an abundance of. And he made these 4 people and some other structures. He made a card, and then he packaged it all up. He wrapped it. He wrote on the box. He saw them, gave them the gift just because he wanted to. He's such a generous soul.
He sounds like he has an amazing soul. I hope my girls someday find a boy like him.
Oh.
Because what I see around us is much more competitive, driven, completely different way of looking into life. So that's why I'm interested in spirituality and mindfulness to teach my kids, although I'm not sure I'm modeling to them. It should start with us, with the parents.
I think that you're right. The modeling is really important. And we can look at what we want to model. And I'm doing this all of the time myself. I'm just curious, what are some of the things you would like to model for your children? What are your dreams to share with them?
In regard to mindfulness, I'm always on the hurry, a bit stressed. I am overwhelmed, spend not enough time in the moment just to enjoy being with them. So I know that, I'm aware of that, I'm trying to change it. And I see that they're being overbooked with activities because we have so many things we would like to teach, and sports practice and all that. And there is not enough time for everything. So I see them becoming anxious too, trying to complete all the different tasks. That's why I would like to model a different type of looking into the world. But I'm not there yet.
Well, awareness is the first step of change, and you sound like you're fully seated in the awareness of what is happening for you.
Yeah. First, I wanted to ask you, you have received training from two parenting programs, the hand-in-hand approach and simplicity parenting. Would you tell us a bit about what they focus on and maybe some tools that you find helpful and that you incorporated in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. So, hand in hand, parenting by connection, developed by Patty Whipfler, is my favorite parenting approach. And it does inform the way that I parent. And not only because it's a wonderful approach, it's actually a great explanation of what's already inside of me. So there's a natural match for me between what I'm inclined to and then the neuroscience, the trauma informed suggestions of this approach. So, Hand in Hand has 5 recommendations, and they are very simply every parent benefits from having a listening partner, meaning that finding someone, not their marital or spouse or intimate partner, but somebody else who just sees the best in them. So it can be a new friend or a family member or a best friend, but somebody who really, really, really cares for the parent and the parent really, really cares for them. And those two people exchange listening time, which is time for the parent to say, blah, whatever, all the celebrations, all the hardships, just as it is, without judgment or hesitation. Tears are welcome, anger, all the bad language is welcome, like just getting it all out in the presence of someone who is just going to love them and see the best in them no matter what, and believe in them. So that listening partnership, and then going back and forth so that the listener also gets to speak whether or not they're a parent. And what this teaches is the parent gains skill in what it's like to release, as well as what it's like to listen while believing wholeheartedly in the speaker. And how this relates to the other principles is that hand in hand parenting has a form of being with emotions called stay listening. And stay listening is when the child is upset, shedding their tears or yelling at any age. They're just having their emotional experience. It could be a tantrum or a fit, or could be short or long. But the parent is going to stay with that child no matter what, and know that whatever the child says, it's not personal. They're just unloading feelings and emotions and some thoughts. And when the child is done with that expression, they're going to be able to think more clearly. So the parent's presence matters because it's the connection that gives the safety of the child knowing that their whole self is valued. And then the other principles are special time, holding limits effectively, and play listening, which I can speak more about, but that's like in a nutshell what hand in hand parenting is offering.
I think it's a match for me too.
Oh, good. Yeah, they have people all over the world who are offering support with this way of parenting because the organization believes it's so important. And I do too. And because it's trauma informed, I stand by it wholeheartedly and with every ounce of me.
And the listening partner, that's an interesting part of it. I'm not sure I even have a person in mind that I can do this with, but it would be awesome. Because most people are interested in sharing, but not listening.
Yes. And both are so important. And to do it with the same person is such a gift.
Yes. Have you found one?
Yes. And in fact, I've had many over the years, but my very favorite listening partner, she has 3 children and I have 1, but her middle child and my son are very close in age. And so they were around 2 when we started. So it's been about 7 years. She lives in Spain. She is such a wonderful person. And for years, we listened with each other without having ever met in person. But then since I've traveled to Spain to visit her and her family, so now I know her in person as well. But we found each other through this hand-in-hand parenting approach. So it was a phone and online connection to begin with. And we were strangers who just felt drawn to each other.
That's amazing. The people you can find like from everywhere.
Mm-hmm. This technology has given us a global reach.
Rain, there's a question I like to ask. If you could address moms worldwide and give them one parenting advice, what would it be?
No matter what, let your children know that you love them. And saying the words is important. And also finding those actions where you feel loving and they're feeling loved at the same time. So sometimes that's through food or doing kind things. Sometimes that's through sharing music or song, but that sharing of love and being sure to say the words. So it is saying the words and it's all the things, but also being sure that the words are said. I love you. So important.
Yes, it is.
And sometimes a gentle touch helps, just a little hand on the leg. I love you.
Yeah, I have a rule. We have to give each other at least one hug a day.
Oh, I love that rule. I want to give you a hug right now.
I love your love, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
Well, just to round things out a bit, I wanted to mention simplicity parenting, which I think is a wonderful parenting approach as well. And one of the things that simplicity parenting offers is a lot of step-by-step instruction around healthy discipline. So I won't go into any examples right now, but just that it's a lovely approach that's very respectful of children, the educational system, parenting styles, and different formations of family, with some more logical or linear ways of do this and then do this and then do this. And some people really like that. They like to know what are 4 steps that would be helpful. And so simplicity parenting has some of that kind of information.
Yeah, some practical tools. What to do when
yes.
It's useful because then you get into practice and you start thinking of your own tools. But at least in the beginning, you have to have.
Yeah, that's right. We make them our own. We, can glean from resources. And then when we embody somebody else's approach, we find oh, I'm going to fit into it like this or use this statement instead. We're all such individuals. And I think that it's wonderful to celebrate our diversity. Yeah.
Well, thank you for this wonderful conversation. I feel so relaxed and grounded after talking to you. Just want to let our listeners know about your podcast, where they can find you and learn more from you.
Well, thank you. I have a wonderful show called Every Moment is Sacred, and I produce meditations as well as healing conversations. It's a twice weekly show, and it's available just about anywhere you look for a podcast.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I've captured the main takeaways from this conversation, and I present them to you here. 1. Meditating is a very regulating experience, all the way through physiology. When children get stressed or anxious or upset about something, ask them to take a few deep breaths. Better yet, breathe together. 2. Introduce meditation with a guided practice created specifically for children. It's best to do it together as a family, as a way to settle down at the end of the day. 3. Nature is the best teacher of spirituality because kids can witness how time passes, yet life continues. They can notice a flower that sprouts from the ground and grows and blooms and sheds its petals, and then lays back down into the earth. And yet the flower is going to bloom again next year. It's not the end, it's a continuation. 4. Even if you live in an urban area, there are some ways to connect daily with the natural world. Growing plants on your balcony is a great example. 5. Listening is a form of meditation. The practice of meditation is listening to oneself. A great tool for honing your child's listening skills is the talking stick. When you pass the talking stick around, you know that the person who is holding the stick is the one who's speaking, and the other people are listening. 6. An amazing tool for parents. Find a listening partner. Someone who cares for you and you care for them, but not your spouse or life partner, somebody else. Exchange with that person listening time. Share all the celebrations, all the hardships, just as they are, without judgment or hesitation. Tears are welcome. Anger, all the bad language are also welcome. Just get it all out in the presence of someone who sees the best in you, no matter what. What this will teach you is to learn to release, and you will also gain the skill to hold the space for someone else. So the next time your kids are shedding their tears or yelling, you'll recognize that they're just having their emotional experience. And you'll know that whatever the child says, it's not personal. They're just unloading feelings and emotions and some thoughts. And when the child is done with that expression, they're going to be able to think more clearly. And your presence matters because it's the connection that gives the safety of the child, knowing that their whole self is valued. Thank you so much for listening and letting me be a part of your day. If you enjoyed this episode or the show in general, please share it with a friend and help me reach more moms around the world. I would also appreciate it if you consider leaving me a review. Reviews are literally the lifeblood of a podcaster and help me so much. Don't forget to subscribe so you get notified when a new episode drops. See you next week.